continuing from where we've left in the previous video, we can now return this duplicate emails collection, which contains all of the emails that are valid with all the invalid characters stripped, and all records that don't have a valid email address are now removed, or if perhaps obviously they also have any duplicates already in the database. Now, all this is fine, but you might be asking the question, why am I actually associating all these calls to these methods with separate variables? Because we could obviously chain it. We could just remove all this and just do it something like this, and then chain this straight after, and so on. But the reason why we're doing this is because we want to actually get those messages which tell us how many emails were invalid, how many were non-unique, how many are already in a database, and so on. That's why I've associated them with the separate variables. Now, in order for us to be able to provide this feedback later on, we are going to create an error bug class, filter error bug class, which will store all these details. So what I'm going to start with is this error bug, and I'm going to create this property straight away. So if we just go up to the top here, and we're going to make it public, so that once we've run our filter, we can actually use the instance of this error bug class, which we'll create in just a moment, to get all this data out of it. And that's going to be, let's just quickly create this class. It's going to be called filter error bug. There we go. The class created, so now I can add it here. So that's a filter error bug, and I'm going to do new filter error bug. And what we are going to be passing here is an array. Let's just actually add it this way. So there we go. And now I'm going to use the same naming as the variables. So all key represents all collection, the all collections. Then invalid emails represent invalid emails. Then we have non-unique emails, and last one, which is going to represent these duplicate emails. There we go. So that's pretty much everything within our mailing list filter. So we can save and close this class. Now let's go back to our filter error bug, and what we're going to start with is by declaring 3 properties. All of them, they will be private. First one will be collection, and it's going to be an item that we'll receive through a constructor as an argument. And this one is Illuminate support, and it's not contract, it's just support collection. There we go. Okay, next one will also be private. It's going to be a simple array errors. By default, we'll set it to an empty array. Then we are going to have private current, which will also be a collection. And again, same Illuminate support collection. Okay, now constructor. And constructor will take collection and then initialize it. There we go. It's all imported now. Okay, so we have a collection. After this, we are going to set this current to the first item in this collection. So collection first. And then we make call to parse method, which we'll create in just a second. So let's add the method stub. There we go. And this method won't return anything. It's a void type, so return void, and we are going to say parse collection. And what's going to happen here, let me just scroll up a little bit. We are going to loop through all these items in the collection, so this collection, using each method, and then just a closure with the collection which we're going to get with each item of this main collection, and we call it item and then the key. And within this closure, what we are going to do is this add error, and we add into error key, and then this current count. So whichever item is currently set as current, all these items within this collection are also of the collection type. So whichever one is the current one, how many items are there, and then minus the one that we are currently looking through, so item, and also method count to see how many items are there. So if we let's just go back to our mailing list filter. As you may remember here, we get the full collection, we just purify email address. Then we will reduce number of items based on whether there are any invalid emails. So from this one, from main one, depending on how many items are there, then we deduct this and that many invalid email addresses we did have within this original collection. And then from this one, we're going to deduct unique emails, and then from this non-unique emails, we're going to filter this one again based on what we have in the database. So all these items will represent how many items were invalid for a given method. Okay, so here add error, and then we change this current to the one we just were iterating over, so item. So next time with the next iteration, this existing one, the one we are currently iterating through, is going to be set as current, and from this current we're going to deduct the next item in this collection. Okay, let's add this add error method as well, and this add error will simply take key and count rather than param. Let's just call it count, and then string key is going to be of a string type, and count is going to be an integer. And let's just do this errors. We add item by key equals count. Now let's just add dog block, and it returns nothing, so void. And for the summary, we are going to say add error. And then the last method, which we'll be using outside of this, the instance of this class, in order to obtain the basically count of the items for the given item, for the given error, is going to be called get. So public function get, and we will take string, which is going to represent the key, and it will return integer. And let's just add some summary here. Get count of errors for a given key. So here what we're going to do is return this errors, and then we simply pass the key. Okay, and that's everything. I'm just going to remove this redundant space here. And one thing I've just noticed, obviously we are expecting collection, but our mailing list filter is passing the array. So let's make sure that we pass the collection. So collection, there we go. So that's the one we need to wrap this array with. Okay, so if we run a test, obviously, if I just go back to the terminal, and if I run the test, PHP unit, there we go, we still have an error, but this time it's a different one. We get 500, so there's something wrong with the code. Obviously, if we go to the storage, because 500, as you may remember, they save the log to the logs directory. And what it says is that we have exception here, class mailing list controller not found in our mailing list, mailing list filter in our mailing list controller. Okay, I'm going to remove this log, and I'm going to open our controller, mailing list controller. There we go, it's highlighted. Let's import this class first of all, so we actually have it here. There we go. I'm just going to organize them all, application imports separate from the packages. So if we now save it, run the test again, we still have 500. Let's quickly check what this new log is telling us. This time we have mailing list, no such table mailing list in connection. So let's just remove this log straight away as well. So the new one is going to generate, if there's any other error, obviously it's going to generate a new log file. And this is because obviously if we check our SQL Pro, you'll see that I have a database, but I don't have any tables because we didn't run the migration yet. So because I'm using Homestead, what I need to do is first of all to SSH to the Homestead and then the run migration from there. However, if you are using WAMP, MAMP or XAMPP, you can do it directly from within the root of your project where you run all other commands, like from here, for instance. What you would do is simply run php artisan migrate and hit return, but if I do this here, it won't work because obviously I don't have database on this instance of the system. I only use the database from within the Vagrant, from within Homestead. So what I need to do, I'm going to open a new tab here in Terminal, Command T on the keyboard, and what I'm going to do is navigate to my home directory, so that's just CD. Now navigate to the Homestead directory, and from here I'm going to run Vagrant, not provision, SSH, and that should log me in to the Homestead. And there we go. If I do ls, you can see we have the code directory, so cd code, and here if I do ls, I should have all my projects, and the one I'm currently working on is this mailing list one. So cd mailing list, and here I can run php artisan migrate, and that should create all the tables that we need, which is only one. So if we now hit refresh, there we go, our mailing list is here, plus the migration table, which basically keeps track of all the migrations, which we obviously create through Laravel. Okay, so now our database is ready. If we go back, we can now exit from this Homestead SSH, and let's go back to our project. And now if I run PHP unit, we still get 500. This time it should be a different error. So if we just open this log, and this time it tells me that we have no table mailing list. Let's quickly check our database. It's called mailing lists with S at the end, because by default, when we create a migration together with the model, it basically makes it plural rather than singular for the table name. That's not, I would prefer actually have it as mailing list rather than mailing lists. If we open our mailing list model, that's how I state it here, but obviously table within the migration is called mailing list. So what I will do is actually rename this migration. So if I just, first of all, I'm going to rename the migration itself, it's the file. So rather than mailing list, I'm going to say create mailing list table, and then open this migration and rename this table to mailing list. Same for the down method. I don't want it to be in plural. I want this singular, so mailing list table, the class name as well. If we save it, close it, let's now go back to the SQL Pro. Let's remove everything. So delete tables, and yes, delete, force delete. So we can run this migration again. Again, I'm going to open a new tab. Navigate to the home directory, Homestead and Vagrant SSH. Now that I'm connected, I'm going to cd code mailing list and php artisan migrate, and that's created the table. Let's quickly have a look. Now the name is mailing list, so that's all fine. Okay, so let's exit. And yeah, and we can close this mailing list class. Let's go back and run the test again. So PHP unit, and this time it tells me that we haven't got this. You have imported 2 records. Okay, that's actually quite an easy fix. So let's go back to our controller, and after the filter, let's create a new variable called subscribers. And on this instance of the filter, call this all method, so we only get the records. We basically, this filter will filter all of them and return only the ones that are to be added to the database. And now mailing list model. On this model we call insert method, and we pass this list of subscribers through, so that should add these records to the database. And lastly, let's remove the file that's just been uploaded. So on link, and then file, variable which contains the full path to this uploaded file. And then what we can do is, for this view, we are going to attach a few variables. So with subscribers, and we pass these subscribers through, so the entire list is going to be passed through to the view. And then error bug with error bug, and we pass this filter arrow back. So we can actually pull all these numbers through. So okay, so that's the controller and this store methods completed. Let's now open our resources, and from within the views, if we go back to our mailing list and result, and here we are going to start with a new paragraph saying you have imported, and then between the brackets, count equals subscribers count. So we get number of subscribers, and I'm associating this with the variable because I'm gonna have to use it again. So rather than calling the method again and triggering this count method and whatever that method does, I have already resulted in this variable for when I won't need to use it next within this view. And after this, space, and again set of brackets, curly brackets, and then I'm going to use a helper function string underscore plural. And I'm passing the word that I want to make plural or singular out of, which is going to be record, and then number of item, which will determine whether it's going to be record or records. So this is where this count variable is being passed, because otherwise I would have to call this subscribers count again, which is obviously completely unnecessary. If I've already called it once, I can associate the value with the variable and just pass it through as an argument. Okay, so let's save it. Let's run our test. Last time it told us that you have imported 2 records. Message wasn't available within the view. Let's run it again. As you can see, now we have a different error again, 500. So let's check the log. And what it says, type error argument 1 passed to build the insert must be of the type array object given. Okay, let's go back to our controller. This is because we are passing collection rather than the array, because filter all, if we click on this method, you can see it returns collection rather than array. So what we need to do is simply on the subscribers call to array, and that should work just fine. If we go back in the terminal, run the test again, and there we go. So the previous message is gone. So the previous message is now passing. The assertion is passing. Now we don't have these 2 invalid email addresses. Okay, let's work on this in the next video.